The death toll is now 19, as another state inmate serving time in a Mississippi prison is dead. And this inmate has a connection to North Mississippi. According to the Rankin County coroner, 36-year-old Omar Beard was found dead in his cell overnight at the Central Mississippi Correctional Facility. Officials with the Mississippi Department of Corrections says his death appears to be from natural causes. The state will do an autopsy to determine how he died. Beard, a Columbus native, pleaded guilty last year for his part in the robbery and killing of a disabled man in 2011. Meanwhile, rappers Jay-Z, Yo Gotti, and Roc Nation continue their legal battle on behalf of Mississippi inmates. Today, Team Roc announced they filed a second civil lawsuit against the Mississippi Department of Corrections in an effort to shut down Parchman. As part of the lawsuit, Team Roc is asking the court to retain full jurisdiction of the Parchman Penitentiary until the problems are solved. And these problems go way back. The 115-year-old prison is woven into the fabric of Mississippi history, but it also has quite the troubled past. Built in 1901 and fully operational by 1905, the Mississippi State Penitentiary at Parchman is equal parts penitentiary and historical landmark.
William Faulkner wrote, "It's Parchman, destination doom. You can't escape, you can't make it."
I think to understand the current situation in Mississippi prisons, you do have to understand the history.
Songs, movies, and books written throughout the last century prove Parchman's impact on Mississippi's history, telling the tales of one of the nation's most notorious prisons. Today, many Mississippi families have tales of their own.
My great-grandfather was the overseer of Camp 7 at Parchman from 1940 to 1943.
Cliff Johnson's great-grandfather, Robert Johnson, lost the family farm and needed a job. In a twist of fate, he got one, working on another farm, Parchman Farm. Flanked by trustees, Johnson rode horseback in the Parchman fields, likely hearing the work chants and field hollers of the inmates, songs originally sung by slaves.
In Mississippi, we have to be honest about our tortured history around race. And for a very long time, prison has been a way to control a certain population in Mississippi.
Fast forward 80 years and 2 generations, and now this branch of the Johnson family tree works to right the wrongs of the past and present.
It's never been like this. It's terrible. It's horrific. It's inhumane. It's third world.
Johnson's a civil rights lawyer and the director of the MacArthur Center for Justice at the University of Mississippi, a group dedicated to bringing reform to the state's prison system.
We've left ourselves in this horrific situation.
And this didn't come without warning. Last summer, the center warned the state that this combination could turn lethal.
I didn't want to be right, but sadly, those words were prophetic. And within 6 months, all those things happened. Violence among inmates, correctional officers being put at risk, and escapes from Parchman. It was just a matter of time if you're paying attention.
Johnson says this deadly recipe has a few more ingredients.
Really an addiction to locking people up in response to behavior that we don't like, rather than dealing with root causes of behavior.
Johnson says inadequate educational programs, drug treatment programs, mental health services, and reentry programs compound the problem of overpopulation.
You know, we're in real crisis when it comes to staffing levels. In the federal system, you might see 9 inmates to a single guard. In our prisons in Mississippi, it's not at all unusual to see 25 inmates to a guard. We're familiar with several situations where you would have one guard, often female, responsible for 120 or 240 inmates on a tier. So if there is a problem, if some violence does break out, what do we expect that individual to do? The legislature has to accept responsibility. They've cut the MDOC budget by more than $100 million in recent years. We have to demand that in this legislative session, in the next 90 days, they right many of the wrongs that they are responsible for.
And Johnson says it's our responsibility too, and his. But for him, it's personal.
So as I do this work, as I protest the conditions and talk about the need for reform, I do that while the blood of my great-grandfather who oversaw the farm courses through my veins, and that's never lost on me. In Mississippi, we're all connected to this narrative.
Next week, I'll introduce you to a former Mississippi inmate who served time in all 3 state prisons, including some time in Unit 29 at Parchman. Pressure on prisons continues next Wednesday on WTVA 9 News at 10.